Season 2 of Written in Stone is brought to you by one of the UK's most historic and forward-thinking brands, RAB. The mountains are our meeting place. Hey everybody, it's Kris. If you're new to Written in Stone this season, here's how it works. We alternate weeks between stories and then interviews with climbers who have some tie to the climber or ascent that we just told a story about. And if you're not new, this is one of the places things will be different this season, since many of these interviews happened over the summer a little unexpectedly, and while I was busy with other things, I didn't have the time to do the research and writing for the same type of interview intros that I did last season. So for now, that sadly had to go. But otherwise, we're still doing this thing. So this past summer, I got word that Jibé Tribout would be in Wyoming, just a couple of hours from my house. And Riley Rush, my co-writer, was here, and we were working on planning this season. And I said to her, wouldn't it be funny if, after painting Jibé as the villain last season, I had a conversation with him this season? So through some connections, I got his contact information, and I also found out that he was with an acquaintance of mine. So I was able to eventually get them both to sit down for a chat at Louis Anderson's house in Ten Sleep. And I want to say thanks to Louis and Val for letting me set up and record in their space. I'm really grateful for that. So today, we're talking with the man who did the third 8A in the world and is reportedly the first to onsight 8A, Belgian climbing legend Arnould T'Kint, as well as the first villain of Season 1, one of the most important climbers of the 80s and 90s, always at the leading edge of difficulty from 13A all the way to 14C or D, the provocateur himself, who actually, after I had him sign my copy of that climbing magazine with him on the cover doing the first ascent of Just Do It, asked me if I was still rapping, which kind of threw me for a second, but then very generously sent me from France a copy of his book, The Eighth Grade, that I'd been searching for, Jibé Tribout. And this conversation is everything I hoped it would be. It was so much fun. So let's get into it. First off, welcome to Written in Stone, both of you. I couldn't be more excited to have this episode happening. I was joking when I was planning the Edlinger episode that what would it be like if I could get Jibé on? And then I touched base with Mike Call and said, hey, how can I get a hold of Jibé? And he said, well, he's going to be in Ten Sleep in a couple of weeks. And I thought, wow, this has to happen somehow, And then Arnould, having you here as well, when I saw that you were here, I thought, wow, I've got to get both of these guys on. They were right there in the mix in the 1980s. So hearing it firsthand from two of the guys who were bringing 8A into existence would be really important. So thanks for sitting down first off.
Well, pleasure.
Pleasure.
So like I said, you were both instrumental in bringing 8A into existence and then solidifying it, making it a real thing. When you were doing it, I'm curious, did it feel like a race to climb that grade? Did it feel like everyone was trying to get there? What was the feeling at the time?
Tu veux commencer?
I have different experience than Jibé, so I can start or you can start. My experience, I'm from Belgium, so I was not part of the big climbing countries, France, Germany, Italy at the time, right?
UK.
And UK, sorry, of course. And so I was really a little bit isolated in my area. So the first really route of 8A, which became 8A plus, 13C, I rated 12D at the time because I had no idea whatsoever about the grade. And 5 years later, I'm like, you know what? That's 13C hard.
And was that?
And I was in 1983.
Was that 13 Boulevard?
13 Boulevard du Vol, yeah.
Yeah.
Which now they found a new way to do it, and it's back to 13B, but it stayed for more than 10 years as 13C in hard. So and so for my point is, I had no idea already I did that grade before I did that grade.
Right, and that seems to be the experience of a lot of people.
Yeah, and then when I came, to the first 80s, like some of the first 80s French grade in Rêve Papillon was a year later, 84, if I'm not mistaken. I was like, oh, I can do that, and so that's my experience of the grade in question.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of people were having that experience. Like Yaniro, I think, graded Grand Illusion 12D. At the time that he did it.
And that was 81, right?
I think that was 79,
79,
actually.
Yeah.
So way ahead of the curve there. And then the grade really got solidified in France, I think, is where it really happened in about 83 or so, 83, 84. So what was your experience, Jibé?
Yeah, my experience is for the 8A, I mean, it was quite chaotic because, before 8A came in France, we downgrade a lot of routes. And after, in 83, it was quite chaotic. Nobody knows really if it's a new grade, but 80, we can say that 8A plus in 84 was really the first time when Edlinger did La Boule, and we did, with Marc and Antoine Lemenestrel, we did the Bidule in Sausois. It was the first time we think, okay, maybe it's one of the hardest routes in the world, But before, for the 8A, not really. 8A plus, and after 8B, we really push the limit to do the first grade, at least in France, in this category. So, but for the 8A, it was many, we have I did an 8A in Sausois in 82. Some friend did, as Arnould said, I mean, everywhere there is this type of grade was open, So it's really hard to know with the first one, who did the first one, but for 8A plus, it's more clear.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of argument that goes on today about grades still, that they're never going to be easier to understand until you've just climbed hundreds of them. And then maybe they actually get harder to understand, who knows? So I have to imagine when you're first pushing into those levels, there are a lot of doubts about what the grade is, a lot of questions about how hard it is, and it takes a few people doing it to see.
For me, my experience, it was quite easy because I was climbing with a lot with Marc and Antoine Lemenestrel, and we were all three strong, let's say. So, I mean, the competition between us we can see that it's hard, because if your friend has a lot of problem to do the route on you too, you think, okay, it should be hard. So for us, it was quite easy. And after the Brits or guy from other country came and confirmed that the grade are hard, so it was not too hard. But I tell you, it was 8A plus and 8B, and 8B plus was really clear that we come to the top level. 8A, not really.
Yeah, well, that's nice having that crew of people who are all vying for best climber in the world, essentially, at the time.
Oh, yeah.
For you over in Belgium, Arnould, it's a different story, right?
And that's why I climbed with, I was pretty much alone between Courtrai in Belgium. So that's why I climbed with, French, English, especially English a lot, at the time, and then and French, of course, and climbing in France most of the time. Except the season of first ascent in Belgium, which is fairly short, spring and fall. Exactly.
I'm curious, since you were over in Belgium, Jibé, I think I read that at Sausois in the 70s, it was already the tradition to kind of work routes, to hang on the rope, work routes out. And so you were ahead of even the term red point. Like, we didn't know that term really at that point. So I'm curious, were you already working routes in Belgium?
Yeah, and just to come back on the subject, I didn't finish my sentence. I missed really what you had, which is this high level friends who could, friends and competitors that could really push together. So I was really a bit isolated on that sense, which, by the way, forged your character too, by the way. So
For sure.
I climbed, thousands of hours, buildings and things alone, and that was really fun. So, and to come back to your question, which was, sorry.
Were you working routes already?
Yeah, and yes, and in fact, I mean, Belgium, if you remember, jaune, the free sort of, doing free was sort of a Belgium concept. We called it en jaune, in yellow. And in yellow came from Claude Barbier, who was from 60s, 70s. And when he didn't use a piton, was there for aid, he painted in yellow.
Wow.
And remember en jaune, and the en jaune was the first term we used for free climbing.
Yeah, free climbing starts more in Belgium than in UK than in France. I mean, when Jean-Claude Droyer did the first 7A, it was in 77, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He just used a concept coming from Belgium on UK. And it's very interesting because the difference, I think, when he started to do that in Sosua, I mean, young guy like me, Le Ménestrel, all these guys, Bouvier was there. So the scene just takes the concept and make it bigger very, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
It was really a shift between before and after this 7A route. I mean, everybody say, okay, that's the game now. We play this game. And we push it very, very quickly. And 2 years after, Jean-Pierre Bouvier did Champs-Élysées 7C+, so it's going like super quick.
Yeah. The Americans were really far behind in the curve of like accepting the ability to hang on the rope and work out moves. And so I find it really fascinating that it sort of comes from the UK and Belgium, these smaller countries, developing this on their own.
That said, if you go back now to the Eastern Bloc, right, and you do routes that have been done in the 70s and early 80s, they are quite fantastically hard. Huh? I have done a few, just like, oh my God. And they were right in the thick of free climbing. Actually, maybe to the highest extent, when you see the knots in Dresden, in Elberstein, or you see the rings that are so far apart in Czechoslovakia, you're just like, wow, history, that side of history is actually, you can see it's coming from many sides of the world and sort of converge. And I agree with Jibé. At one point, they got clarity on the 8A plus 8B level, I think, especially the 8B level. 8A plus, I think, was still, think about Grand Illusion, think about Reservoir du Vol, think about other routes. But at the 8B level, I think it sort of got clarity there. But before that, I think it's pretty... not shadowy, but more isolated a bit everywhere.
Yeah, a little more abstract.
Yeah. From pockets all over the world, right?
To your point, one of the things I discovered in making season 1 was that these ideas were like germinating in all sorts of places and then coming to the forefront and bubbling up, all together. But when we write it in the history books, we want to give credit to one person for creating this thing, But in reality, it took all of these different personalities and ideas and people trying to push levels.
In performance. I mean, like performance, some that we might never know exactly when it happened and how,
Yeah, absolutely. I find that really fascinating. And especially that, is it called Anjou? Is that right?
En jaune.
In
yellow.
In yellow.
In yellow, because it was like,
I find that fascinating that in the two places, like we give a lot of credit to Kurt Albert and for the red point idea, and he's painting red circles, and then this yellow paint is happening over in Belgium as a way to like communicate it to other people who are showing up to know how it's been done. I think that's the next step in, we've had this idea, now how do we communicate it? Paint becomes this way to show people. That's really great. I'm really fascinated by, and I want to talk about this rivalry of sorts between the Parisians and the climbers in the south of France. And Arnould, with Belgium being closer to Paris, how soon were you coming into France to climb, and were you taking sides at all? Did it feel like there were sides to take?
So first of all, we have been influenced very strongly by two climbers. At least in my, Frire is really a very, very big, a very interesting cliff and very hard. We've been influenced by Jean-Claude Royer early on, and then by Laurent Jacob, coming both from Sausois, but let's call it, right? From Paris and Sausois. I actually took a bit of a different route. I went really into bouldering, and so I was very ingrained. Very local in the Fontainebleau area with Jackie Godoff, and so we climbed a lot. I was 18, so it was early, and so I was really more into the bouldering side of things at that time. And then I started to go to Surf of France very fast, 82, 83, 84. But so I was not really part. I saw that from afar, and I had friends from both sides, really. So really for me, it was a bit of an abstract. Abstract, not abstract, but I was like, okay.
I was sort of hoping you were going to say that you hadn't really taken a side, because I want to get your take on, Jibé's perspective of it coming from, this Parisian versus Edlinger in the south of France.
And before you go there, on the other hand, I could understand very well some of the aspect of it, because sometimes you go, oh my gosh, I would be quite pissed.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yes, I didn't take a real side, really.
Yeah. Jibé, how did you first encounter who Edlinger was?
The first thing, sorry, I start again. It's starting when Edlinger did these movies, La vie au bout des doigts. Edlinger become he was a climber and he became a media star, in 6 months. So at the beginning we think, oh, it's cool. It's cool for the activities. But after, the media start to say he should be the best climber in the world because he did this crazy movie. And we become a little bit pissed because at this time, with Marc and Antoine, another guy, we were climbing much harder than Edlinger.
Right.
So it was, that was the first point. Second point, we come from Paris. And, when you are Parisian in France, the rest of France don't like you. It's like because you came from the biggest city.
Right.
So the rivalry become north with the top climbers and south with the guy lazy on the beach and, climbing with a nice...
the headbands.
Headband in long hair and everything. And we were... So the rivalry come also from that. So, and after, the third point was the competition. Competition came and we all get there and snowboard, Bardonnecchia first.
Arco first.
Bardonnecchia, and after snowboard. So all these things make the rivalry. And the last point was when I did, let's call the first 8C in the world with the Les Spécialistes.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah,
I need to hear that story.
Edlinger did the second assault and downgraded to 8B+.
Yeah.
So that was another rivalry. That was really the top rivalry between both.
Yeah, in those early days when you're like seeing these movies, were you and the Les Ménestrels, were you like creating this rivalry in your head before Edlinger even knew there was a rivalry? I'm just curious.
I think yes, to be honest, because all of us wanted to be the best climber.
Sure.
All of us wanted to get the sunlight and get the media attention. So for sure, yes. And we were really pissed off too. Then we are not in the movie, especially at this time because we all climb free solo. So But they choose Edlinger and the stories, and they should have chosen Patrick Béraud. Normally, La vie au bout du doigt, comment on dit, ça aurait dû être fait par Patrick Béraud.
It should have been featuring Patrick Béraud.
Yeah, and he refused.
So he was the better climber.
No, I mean they choose the.
I think he was. By the way, I think he was. By the way.
The movie maker choice Patrick Béraud, and he said, "No, I can't. I have other thing to do." And they choice Edlinger after that. So life is strange. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I think the media is really interesting because, like we have Alex Honnold today, who is great at what he does, the best at what he does. But so many people who've seen free solo think he's the best climber in the world,
Yeah, that said, I mean, for somebody coming from Belgium with no magazine, so we were, I mean, talking of fighting to have media, for me, it was like, I did one cover and it was in Italy, and that's it. Nowadays, with social media, it's fantastic. It's such a level playing field.
Yeah.
You do a performance. You can express it in plenty of ways, which it's absolutely fantastic. I find it such a refreshing way to see it.
Yeah, same. I think it can be really brilliant.
I think it's really good. And then I'm just going to come back to Edlinger. In fact, now that you talk about the movie, right? Well, I did. There was a Carnet de l'Aventure, 26 minutes on me in Belgium, and I actually, without telling it's something a reaction to Edlinger. It was actually a reaction. The movie was all about trying hard routes live and saying, "Hey, climbing is not all nice and pretty. It's about falling until you do it." And that movie is like it's 70% falling and 30% success. And it's funny. Patrick years later he said, "Oh, I saw your movie." I said, "Oh, what do you think?" He said, "Loved it. I thought it was really inspiring." But anyway, that was a reaction totally to what Jibé said. It's not like all perfect and so on. Anyway, quick tidbit.
I feel like looking at it now, like I'm looking back in time. 50 years, 45 years, it seems like Edlinger, because of those films and because of what you're talking about, that he wasn't falling, it was just all pretty graceful climbing, he was sort of seen as this like grace and the perfect climber, and then I feel like the Parisian crowd were more about grit and difficulty and trying really hard. And that's what sort of created this rivalry. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's totally that. To be honest, I mean, Patrick was climbing very well. I mean, the way he was moving on the rock was really, really graceful and everything. And we were more like crimping, go strong, and no matter how it looks, I mean, go to the top. So it's true. It's where also the rivalry come from there. And you are right, I think.
And they had not really embraced hangdogging yet, right? Like hanging on the rope to work out moves.
You mean
the south of France?
No, they were doing too. Yeah.
Okay, they were as well.
The difference, they were only Béraud, Edlinger, and maybe a group of friends of Edlinger. So very few people, and so people from Paris, the scene was much bigger, much bigger. That's make also the difference.
Right. Well, when you were eventually traveling to Verdon and Buoux, did it feel like invading their area? Did it feel like you were going there to take over their crags?
I can tell you yes, because usually we were the groupe des Parisiens, the gang of Parisian climber. We were about 7, 8, between 7, 8 and 12. And we came to the crag and bolting new route. And we have a big sound machine. And we were trying the route with sound machine, very strongly. So other people, they were very shocked about, how we were at the crag. We were very, very aggressive at this moment.
Are you saying ghetto blasters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of music were you playing at the time?
It was hard rock mostly, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, all these things. And so very strong music, and so it was quite fun. I mean, and for sure we wanted we open new route also. That makes big difference. The guy from the south doesn't like that at all. I mean, we came on the crag and opened many new routes everywhere. So the rivalry come from there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. In those early years, actually kind of throughout the 80s, Edlinger was known for his onsighting. And am I right, Arnould, that you were one of, if not the first person to onsight 8A plus?
I don't think so. My 8A plus was 89. It was Herman Bull in Berdorf. So I think 8A plus. I don't think it's 8A plus on site, Jibé.
I mean, for 8A on site, I belay Antoine when he did Samizdat in Simai.
Yeah.
I was a belayer, so I saw him climbing it.
8A
For
plus?
8A plus, I don't really remember. Sorry for that.
It must have been near the end of the 80s.
Yeah,
that
so
someone did
89,
8A
for me it
plus.
was May 89. And
Okay.
it was quite a feat. And I still, it was definitely. And the route is fabulous. I mean, you see that wall, you're just like, oh, okay, that's not a little route. That's a big ass road. So yeah, I'm very proud of it. But I'm not sure. I didn't when I did it, I was not totally sure. I didn't know. But
we're just gonna have to give you credits so your name goes into the history books.
yeah,
regardless,
that's fine. I mean, Tribout and Arnould was definitely a big one for me.
Yeah.
That 80 plus for sure was probably one of the first ones. Yeah, no question.
Well, like when I go back and try to decipher the history and who was doing what first, I've heard several times, and I saw your reaction when I said Edlinger was known for his onsights, and I've read a lot about that. But then I actually go look in the history books, and it seems like the Parisian crowd was not only doing more harder onsights, but also more harder red points at the time. That Edlinger was being, credited with all of these things. Do you think that was simply a case of, not that he wasn't a good climber, I'm not saying that, he was obviously a great climber, but was it a case of the media just latching on to his star power?
I think it was a case of media because we have, as Arnould said, we have trouble to get some time info to media on everything. So for sure, it's a part of that a little. On Edlinger was really, really strong with media. I mean, making pictures and on film, on everything. So for sure, I mean, it was our performance looks not as fantastic as his performance. Yeah.
And then at the time, I mean, when I think 84, I think about Jerry Moffat and Papi on site, right? On site. That was quite a
Jerry
quite a shock.
on-sighted Edlinger's route that he had bolted.
Exactly.
But
And
not
that was
done.
for me, I mean, that was quite a shock for a lot of people, I think. Jerry did, he was really good on site. He did a lot of on site, I think, in Yosemite and in the States that way.
I have a good story with Jerry. When before starting on site, we were climbing in Buoux with all the crew, the French crew, and we saw Jerry coming, and he flashed 12C and 12D just in front of us, and it was a big shock for Antoine, Marc, and me because we were on site in maybe 12B, And after that, we really start climbing on site. After saw Jerry, it was a shock, really.
Yeah. So we agree on that one, right?
Yeah.
It was a shock,
Totally. It was totally, because he did this route in Buoux, and after he came to Verdon, and he did Papi on site.
Yeah.
On Bosch, it was for us, we say, we are bad climbers, know? And so we start to climb on site, and suddenly our level goes very fast also, because it's just, we don't really try at this time.
I mean, I remember 84. I wanted absolutely to get after him. I went that summer, 84, to Verdun, tried to do Papi on site. Took me 6-7 tries. It was not easy. I was like, ooh, shit.
Yeah, I've always sort of equated you, Jibé, with Jerry in the brash, outspoken attitude, the unfiltered willingness to say things. Did you feel that way? Was he sort of a kindred spirit in that
No,
regard?
totally. Yeah, I was quite aggressive, especially with the media, because people always say, "Okay, what do you think about Edlinger? What do you think about his performance?" And I was always say, "Man, I'm doing harder route. I mean, just that. I mean, he's a good climber, but I'm a better climber." So in the media, they love that. I mean, for sure, they love this aspect and yeah, I mean, the character of Edlinger on me was totally different. I mean, I think I wanted more to be the best climber. I think Edlinger think he was, and I wanted to be the best climber.
Yeah.
That's a big difference, I think.
Yeah. Do you think his star power eclipsed his actual climbing?
I think yes. To be honest, I mean, he should have climbed with us at this time. And he could have been a much better climber, climbing with other climbers. Because at this time, you have to imagine there is not so many routes like now. So if you don't go in Buoux with a cruiser or in Verdon or in
Sure.
Frankenjura, I mean, you climb just alone in your small crag, and you can't make progress like that. You have to climb with other climbers. And it's true today. If you look in Flatanger, you have Jacob is climbing with Ondra, climbing with
Right.
Seb Buoux.
Yeah.
Why? They do the same things than we did in the past, and they push themselves.
And they do it on bouldering too.
And they do
Yeah.
in bouldering a lot. So, I mean, I think Patrick missed something than not going climbing with others. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about climbing today is that a lot of the top climbers are pushing each other, trying each other's routes and vying for first ascents.
I have to say, I love the spirit.
I do too.
I started again climbing a few years, 3 years ago, and in the last year and a half, I started to look more at videos, and I'm like, wow, what a spirit! It's just
Yeah.
like quite now. To be fair, it's like it's all open media, so you better be good. You better be playing good with everybody, right? Because it's so open now, right?
Yeah.
And there's something about that, but the spirit, I have to say, is quite fantastic.
Yeah, but I also like the like prodding at each other, and I read an article where it quotes you. I think Ben Moon wrote the article originally, and then it quotes you and Alex Huber and Fred Nicole, and I think you said something to the effect of put Hubble in Buoux and it would have 20 ascents already.
Yes, it's true. I said something like that. It's exactly what I want to say to the Brits. I mean, the Brits, nobody wants to go climbing in UK. I mean, nobody wants to go there. It's raining all the time. On the cliff are so short and no, they are not nice crag. I mean, there is no colonnette, no tufa, nothing. I mean, so it was joking, but I think it was quite true, to be honest.
Yeah, I love that spirit. I wish everyone listening could have seen Arnould fist bumping Jibé at that comment, because I really.
And we love Ben and Jerry, by the way. They're very good friends.
It's a good friend. I mean, we climb with them.
We climb. We
friend.
WhatsApp all the time.
Yeah, and that's what I love about it. Like, there's obviously some fire there, but then you're all getting together to climb things, and that makes me curious. Like, what was first? Let's talk Buoux. What was Buoux like at the crag? What was the scene like in the 80s?
It's interesting because Arnould was there also. I mean, the scene is very simple. You see Le Bout du Monde. It's a part of the crag where you have La Rose et le Vampire, Le Minimum, all this route. And every let's say at 3-4 o'clock, you have everybody comes there, and people who are trying routes, and you have maybe 20-30 climbers. Some are looking, some are climbing, some are smoking, not only cigarettes and everything. And it was, that was the scene. It was every day like that. And before it was in Le Bombay, on the Les Devers on the left, and after everybody's there. So it was quite fun.
Quite a scene.
Yeah.
It was quite a scene. It was fantastic.
The only thing which was not very good, and we were missing girls. I mean, at this time, I mean, it was really a male men a scene. So, you know, not so many women was there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it changed a lot now. The scene is much
it's
much
very
better.
different now. I mean,
Yeah.
that extended all the way into when I started climbing in the mid '90s. There weren't that many women at the crag.
Now it's nearly half and half. Huh?
Yeah, which
I
is
mean,
great.
Yeah. In the gym, it's sometimes more women than men. I would say.
Yeah, I know there were a few women showing up there. You know, I know Lynn came through. I know Catherine did. Shuka.
There were Christine Lambert who did the first 7C in France in women, I think, maybe in the world. And she
Isabelle
came there.
Patissier.
Isabelle Patissier was there,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah.
Was Edlinger ever, like, did he come and get involved in that scene at all?
Not at all. We never saw Edlinger in Buoux when we were there. That was something it's for that. All the mystery around Edlinger come also, and he was never climbing when some other strong climber was there. He was climbing only with a small group of friends. So I never really saw Patrick climbing, except in competition.
Exactly. The first time, I mean, I met him a few times, but really the first time we can really talk, have a conversation, see him climb was in competition. First time, 86 Arco.
Yeah, I saw him a few times in Simai because he was living close to Simai. So a few times I saw Patrick doing laps en route, but not trying something hard. I mean, just training. But except that, nobody really saw Patrick doing something hard. That was a part of the opposition also with other climbers, because the tradition was you climb with friends, somebody belay you, somebody see you do your performance. Because at this time there is no video. You have to imagine there is no video, nothing, no
phones. You
no
could just
phones,
set
nothing.
up.
So if the only thing you can say is, my friend belay me, so I did the route, So Edlinger was, we were not really sure that he climbed all what he said.
Right. That makes me a little sad, actually, that, maybe he took that star power so, like, personally, that he was afraid to climb in front of people and fail in front of people, or whatever the reason was.
I think he was. It's for that, for him, it was a big, I think it was a big success when he won some competition, because it's true. I mean, he was first few times. And so this victory makes him, okay, I'm the best climber in the world, And even now you can see that I'm the best climber in the world. So it was a very strong comps at this time. It was not very pleasant to do this competition, even, I can tell you.
Yeah.
What about the Verdon? What was the scene like there in contrast to Buoux?
Verdon is different because you have to go down. Nobody really see you.
Right.
So it was a different scene, but there is the big spot was le café in La Palue, where everybody comes every night drinking beer and everything. So the scene was more in the café than in the crag, Verdon was good for years. I mean, on the 80s to the beginning of the 90s, after Verdon disappeared, but it was a great scene too, but different. Not as, because you can't climb with many friends. I mean, you have to be just with your friend and try one project. So it was not as fun as Buoux and but due to the crag, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's stay in the Verdon for a minute, and it's August 1987.
Yes.
I need to hear from you, Jibé, the whole story of Les Specialistas.
Yeah, it's a nice story. First, I mean, it's the route was discovered by during movies, and it's for that the name Specialist come from the name of these movies. And a friend of us say, there is a little piece of rock, very steep. You should go there. So I went there with Raboutou. It's very funny, yeah. And I bolted the route with Didier. And after Didier left, I think maybe with Robin somewhere, and I started to try the route. And I was making a lot of progress quite quickly. And but you have to. It's in summer, so summer it's very hot in Verdon. Huh? You have to see that. So, and I was close to do the route, really, really close. And one day I saw some new chalk mark, in the route. I was alone to try for sure. It was closed project, and I saw a lot of chalk mark, and I said, there is a problem. So I come back to the cafe very angry, somebody's trying my route, who is trying my route and everything. Very, very, very pissed off. And people say, I think it's Edlinger. We saw Edlinger somewhere. And I say, fuck. I mean, he's trying my route. And I should have go somewhere for a business trip, and I think, okay, I can't leave the route like that. So all was quite a flake was quite loose at the end of the route. So I decided to just take it off.
Yeah.
And keep it in my car, and like that, nobody can climb the route. It was impossible. And so I did my business trip. I come back, and I glue it. I glue it back. And after I try again, and I stayed to the end to the route, and I did the first ascent. Yeah.
What was the year?
87. I mean, this ascent become well known because of this story with Edlinger, but also because of the pictures.
Yeah.
Because you have to imagine that before pictures was not so steep, and for this picture shows a new sort of climbing. I mean, climber was on a very, very steep wall, very overhanging, and it was also a part of the success because the route is 15 meters high. There is, it's a very beautiful route, but it's not the best route on the world. But that's the story.
Yeah, and it seems like Les Specialistes was kind of one of the first, like, really dynamic, bouldery, powerful, new age, sort of futuristic routes.
Yes, as I tell you, I mean, it's a short route, very bouldery, and it was quite new, especially the steepness. And after Wolfgang did Wall Street at about the same time, and we saw also the pictures of Wolfgang with his mono pocket and everything. And this ascent with specialist on after Wall Street makes climbing going on a very, very steep climbing. And before we were climbing more on vertical and
right,
not as steep wall. So for that it's an important ascent, I think. Yes.
Yeah, and for the younger climbers listening who may not even realize that there wasn't steep climbing at some point, you all didn't have these incredible steep gyms everywhere to train in and learn all that movement. So it's a new foreign thing when you're getting on something really steep like that.
Yeah, for sure. And also it was a route with a lot of tufa colonnette, which was new also, this style of climbing. So it was something brilliant. It's a brilliant route, and it's not easy. I can tell you. People say it's a hard AB+.
Yeah.
So it's still people are going to tick the routes. Even now, you see people, they want to do the specialist and they have trouble most of the time.
Yeah. And you called it 8C.
Yeah.
And that would have made it the first, most likely, 8C in the world.
Yeah.
And then Edlinger comes along and downgrades it.
Yeah. So you imagine the I mean, that's the game. That's the game. You have to accept it. It's like that. But it was difficult time for me, I can tell you.
Yeah. And this is why I think your position, Arnould, getting to, be on a side, take a step back, do whatever, play whichever side you wanted to play at the moment is a really great position to be in when all of this is going on.
Yeah, at the time, 87, actually I was totally out of that story. I didn't even know about it until it was done. I was really climbing a lot with more with the English crew, in the south too.
Well, see, that's what happened.
yeah,
The Brits came along
Yeah.
and started doing all the hard routes, and you
Yeah.
said, "I'm going with those guys."
Well, again, I was at the time I was alone. Now, mind you, after that we had great, fantastic Belgian climbers in the 90s and 2000 now.
yeah,
and I mean,
yeah,
but at the time I was really alone. So yes, I had to, I went with the people I thought was the best fit, and so yeah, I was more in the Brits with the Brits at the time. At that particular year, it's 87 and then 88, and then yeah, that's it. So I didn't know the full story about Specialist. So here we are.
Well, I think it sort of continues, right? Because right after this is Snowbird, and this is, at least in retrospect, it was kind of seen as like, this is what's going to say once and for all who's the better climber. And then, tell the story of Snowbird from your perspective.
So, first of all, it was I was so happy to come to USA to do a comps. I mean, for us, it was fantastic to have this opportunity to do something with all this media and everything. And for sure, after the story of Les Spécialistes, this comps was very, very important. And I did my best on Edlinger one, so for sure it was another shock after Les Spécialistes. And I just remember that after the competition, there were a banquet. How you call banquet?
Banquet.
And everybody was there, and it's in altitude, and I was drinking a lot of wine.
I have such a good memory picture of that one.
Yeah, when the jury called me to get my prize, I mean, I just
Stumbled.
Yeah, I was moving like that to go to take my prize, and I could not even walk nearly. So I mean, it was not nice for my image, because people think this guy is not respect the podium and everything. And it was true in a way,
Especially because it was really the first comp where we were received as stars. I mean, as athlete stars. It was incredible. The reception from. We were all commenting on that. It was like there was this pre-competition party, if you remember, where the climbers were all asked to come as a climber, so we're all in our ties and everything, and it was mixed up at the rooftop with all people in all in tuxedos. And it was quite it was quite fantastic.
No, it was as you say, we were considered as a star, and it makes us a special feeling. We become really a pro climber as these days, really.
Yeah.
So it was good comp. After you need somebody win. It's all comps. It's like that.
Well, is that the same comp that Ron Kalk fell really low on the wall?
Yes.
Don't get me started. I mean,
please get started.
I was probably my fittest onside. I just did 80 onside 10 days before. I did another one. I was like ready, and this qualification was like not well done. I mean, most people fell after 25 feet. There was sort of this credit card, and nobody saw that you could take it undercling, and we all fell except a few. Like me, like you. I was so angry, so angry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Ron was part of the victims of that.
Got it.
The opening was terrible, frankly. I mean, at least for the qualification.
Yeah.
But to come back to this story where in Snowbird Edlinger won, but it's these two events give me a lot of motivation to train harder, and I become a better climber after that.
Mm-hmm.
So I start to really train even more than before, and after it was important for me also to miss the victory, and because you have to push yourself if you want to become better. So this gives me a lot of motivation. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I expect, like I've read a lot of articles. Your attitude is one of like fire, and I love that. I'm curious, Arnould, when those things would happen to you, like that, when you get pissed off at Snowbird, does that drive you further? What happens in you're a, quieter, not as aggressive and brash.
I was quite aggressive at the time, actually. I was maybe not as vocal, but I was quite aggressive. I mean, intense. Let's call it. I was very intense. I also wanted to be the best climber in the world, in the beginning of '80s. So I don't know, the snowbird rivalry was really fun to watch, by the way. That I have to say, I took some pleasure.
Everybody takes pleasure to see Edlinger on me on the podium for sure.
Yeah. The stumbling to the podium was quite fantastic. The snowbird, that one actually was a bit disheartening for me. The snowbird thing was disheartening. And I was not very good competition. My first competition in Arco was my best. I was second in Arco on 86, and then after that I did third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8, 9, 10, 11, never got first. So I was not very good at competition altogether. Didn't prepare well, didn't cope very well to being at the right time, to be on and not being affected by the crowd or the nervousness, and even to today. I mean, I've still have always issues about to tame that pressure, and to channel that pressure into, and much easier to do on red points and onsight and things like this in competition. So
there's a lot of talk these days, with climbing being in the Olympics, that having that much focus on the competition also takes away from things getting done outside. Obviously Andra and Megos are going to put some more focus on climbing indoors right now. And what would happen if Janja were climbing outside more? What would we see? And I'm curious what it was like back then. Were there climbers who were, before Isabelle Petissier, maybe she was one of the first to really, become a competition queen. Were there climbers who were mostly focused on competition? And was Edlinger one of those?
Edlinger one was of this guy, for sure. And at this time, I become one of the only one who do both. I mean, open new routes and going to camp. And I can tell you that if you chose one activity or another, you are better for sure. I mean, and no question. And for me, it was. I love climbing rocks, so I follow to open new route. But most of my competitors, they were doing only comps after snowboard at the beginning of the 90s. It was
a shift. End of it,
in let's say 91, 92, when we have all this big camp in Germany, in France, on the apparition of Stefan Glovacs.
Stefan started in 87, 88.
Yeah, he was there, but when he became a star in Germany, I mean, he really focused on comp, on Didier Raboutou, on all these guys. François Legrand after. And,
Legrand, of course.
And Simon Nadine from UK. It was just before, but many people focus on only on comps at this time. It's true. Yeah.
Didier hasn't come up in this conversation too many times yet, but he has to.
And Didier did nearly only competition. He never nearly not climb outside, just a little.
Yeah, he was one of the very first to focus on competition.
I talked to Didier last year. He visited me on the south with Robin. They visit, and he said he stopped competition because at one point he thought he couldn't be number one. And he said, I don't want to be number 2 or number 3. So he stopped. After that, it was a shock for me because, climbing, for me, it's more than just going in competitions. There is outside, there is boulder, there's many things to do.
Right.
But Didier was really radical. He wanted to be the number 1. He focused really, really hard. He was super strong. But, he decided to stop climbing.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you, Didier came into the episode I did about you doing Just Do It last season, because I'd read that Didier was also trying it, and that you had gone home and were training really hard to come back and do the thing while he's over there trying it. But it seemed like while there was some, competition there, it also seemed like friendly competition.
Yeah, it was friendly, but I mean, when I was starting first time, just do it. I mean, I spent, I think, 2 weeks on a route, and the heat came, so it was too hot, and I cut my finger too. And so after Didier came maybe 3 months after me or something like that, and then he tweets his ankle. Going to the monkey, he tweets his ankle, so
hiking in, he twists his ankle somewhere.
And so he couldn't do the route. And when he come back to France, I say, oof, I have to do this route very, very quickly. Otherwise, he can do it before me. So yes, I was training like hell and when I come back next spring, I mean, I was much stronger than the first time. And I did it quite quickly. I mean, a week or something like that. So.
Yeah. Well, I also talked to Alan Watts after that episode, and one of the things I wanted to know from Alan was like, how did he feel? There was a lot of controversy with you coming in and doing some of these routes, and I really loved Alan's response, and his attitude about it was basically those routes needed to be done at that time, and he was the guy to do them. Would I have loved to do them first? Sure, but they had to get done right then for Smith to become what it was. And, you had said, in fact, in this article, in this magazine, you said something to the effect of, competition for a first ascent is what pushes things forward. And I think that's that phrase really like paints the picture of what was happening in the 80s with all of the top climbers vying for these ascents.
Yeah, I have to say something. At this time, I mean, the project was closed. You have to understand that it's not like now where most of the projects are open projects. Everybody can try it. At this time, projects were closed. And I was a bad guy all the time. Everywhere in US, in UK, in France, everywhere I was trying the route, even if it was closed project. Mm-hmm. So people think I was really a bad guy, because... But I always think, I mean, the rock is not, you can't say it's my route. I mean, the rock is there. Right. Just try it.
Right.
And for that, people say, Jibé, it's not correct what he's doing. But, now I was right. I mean, all the projects are open now. There is not closed project anymore.
Yeah, I think it's, I see both sides of it for sure. And definitely in season one, a lot of the players in season one of this podcast show up in other episodes. And the very first episode of the season was Lynn doing Mass Critique. Yeah. So, I had to paint you a little bit as a villain in that story.
I like that.
He enjoys it.
But you also continued pushing things in that competitive fire was part of that, I think.
Yes.
And it maybe pushed Lynn to, I saw a quote in the 9th grade where you say it started off as a joke, that got taken serious, but you wanted to push Lynn because you saw how good she was. And I don't know if that's revisionist history on your part or not, but I think that is what happened. Lynn did get pushed to push the limits.
I climbed with Lynn, and I can tell you when she did her first 8A onsight.
Mm-hmm. That's in the Franken Jura?
Yeah,
right?
I was there, and I brushed the hold. I did the route first. I brushed everything through Lynn. We say, okay, come on. And we were there, and we push Lynn to climb the route. I pushed Lynn to climb the route. So... And it was the same all the time. I mean, we were really say, you can do it, because never remember that Lynn is a very short climber.
Yeah.
So people forget that, but she can't do all routes because, sometimes it's impossible. And it's happened, she spent a lot of time in Macumba Club, the 8C in Orgon. And she couldn't do it because she was short. She has the level to do it, but she couldn't. And at this time, it could have been the first 8C by a woman, Mm-hmm. And voilà. So yes, I push Lynn a lot at this time. But also, I'm a villain. Yeah, for sure.
Well, my coaching style originally, I was a gymnastics coach before I was a climbing coach, and my coaching style was very much the push through being hard on people, you know? So I can see that aspect of it being really valuable, and some people really respond to that. So I think it's a real thing. I think that's one of the things you did really brilliantly, was to travel around and put up these hard routes or do these hard onsights sort of in the face of the locals, and to make a point of that throughout your career.
Yeah, and also, you know, the style of route. When I saw the first time to bolt and after just do it, I mean, you see, I saw the line and I say, I want to climb this line. And now when I see Kris Sharma, I mean, with his king line, I mean, at this time, it was a sort of king line. The name was not yet there, but it was king line. And if you open king line in another country, I mean, that's make you for sure, let's say, a good climber at least. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Thank both of you for taking the time out to sit down. I'm really glad I got to catch both of you while you're here to chat about this era of climbing. It means a lot to me that you took the time out.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
1, 2.
Written in Stone is produced by me, Chris Hampton, with help from Riley Rush for Plugtone Audio, a group of the best, most impactful podcasts in the outdoor industry. Big thanks to Jibé and Arnould for sitting down with me to chat. So much fun. And remember, this show was 100% rooted in the facts, but like Todd Skinner always said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. If you love what you're hearing, give us those 5 stars and a glowing review, join our Patreon, the Secret Stoners Club, and tell everyone you know, at the crag, at the gym. Hell, even tell the people you don't know, and together we can tell the stories of climbing's most important ascents, one decade at a time. Secret Stoners, another one. First things first here, shout out to Nico, our newest legend. I appreciate you. Second, if you hear little voices in the background, that's my wife and my toddler getting ready for bed, reading stories, apparently very raucous stories. I can hear them several rooms away. So I sort of wish I was doing that instead of doing this. But it's Sunday night. You guys are getting this Monday morning. It's got to get done. Boy, this conversation, I can't lie. I like confrontation. I like discomfort. But I was uncomfortable initially going into this conversation, and I just wasn't sure what it would be. You know, I only know of Jibé Tribout through my research and, you know, my painting him as a villain in season 1 certainly colors my thought of who he might be. That said, I've played the villain myself, so I know how it goes. But it very quickly became apparent that he enjoyed that role, and that he's actually a very, very nice and fun character. So I'm really happy that this conversation happened. I had already known Arnould. Arnould had stopped by my house in Lander years earlier. His son was a fan of my music, and Amy Skinner brought them over. Showed them the gym and chatted for a while, and I knew Arnoud's wife Karen as well. She's also a climbing industry legend. So it was nice to have Arnould as the buffer there, and to get to talk to him and to have Jibé be so gracious with his time And it was just so much fun. Several things happened during this conversation. Like, this is where I started down the path of, is Patrick Edlinger, was he just an influencer? And I had to go back and look at his track record to say, no, not quite an influencer in the way that we currently think of influencers, but yes, his fame, his impact was more as an influencer, as a cultural icon. So this conversation threw me for a little while, and I had to sort of right the ship before I could write that Edlinger episode, which I'm actually very happy with how it came out and how it can lead into the future episodes. Also, from this episode, there's a moment there where Arnould says that the Belgians were using this concept of in yellow. And I've read about that since, and it's really fascinating to me that people in different places were realizing that, and this is way pre-internet where we can't just communicate about these things easily. You're not going to go look up on Mountain Project what routes have been done. So they were communicating with other climbers via paint to say, we didn't need this fixed gear. We've done this route free. I think that's really fascinating that these ideas were all swirling and developing. Also from this made me a little sad, actually, and I mentioned that in the interview, but it did give me a glimpse into Tribout's personality when he said, Edlinger should have climbed with us. Yes, they were rivals. Arch enemies, maybe. That's certainly how I'm going to paint them. But Tribout thought he should have climbed with us. He would have been a better climber had he climbed with us. I think that's really beautiful, actually, that he saw that potential and knew and understood that this crew that was around him was one of the big driving forces of him being as good a climber as he was. I think it's easy to get mixed up in your own ego and think that you're the driving force, you're the reason you're great, when in reality, there are a lot more factors that combine, and Tribout understood that. And I really loved that moment. Okay, it's still a little raucous down there. I'm going to go read a book and get in on the fun. In 2 days, you're getting another interview with the author of my favorite resource book of last season and one of my favorite resources so far this season is a different book of his. Certainly one of France's preeminent climbing historians. All right, I'll see you then.